This is George Papadopoulos, former 2016 Trump foreign policy advisor, Newsmax contributor. George, good to see you. Thanks for coming on. A lot to talk about, a lot of news going on right now. But if you look at the media perspective, they've been using these words a lot. Coup and insurrection a lot of the past few days. You yourself have been a part of the Russia investigation. You hear the word coup being used now and what you've seen on the Capitol riots. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for having me. And today does mark President Trump's last full week in office, and history does remember the bold. What I think the president has to do right now, including down at his speech in Texas, if he does want to go down in history for his resounding policy achievements, both domestic and abroad, is while simultaneously galvanizing the 75 million Americans who voted for him and whose policies served them so well, he really has to be bold and consistent. He has to stop focusing so much right now on this narrative of the coup. I think, unfortunately, that time has bypassed us. He needs to detail what those achievements were, and he has to humanize himself for a graceful exit from the world stage until he does run again in 2024. The American people will respect that. It will leave an indelible positive image in his mind and around the country, but a graceful exit also doesn't mean he shouldn't take action during this last week. There have been rumors that he might sign the Insurrection Act. That's something that I don't think he's going to do. But something that he actually might do, which will impact the next administration, is releasing a lot of these declassified documents regarding Obamagate and the spying that occurred in 2016 and its impact not only on the midterms, but also on this last election. I think that's where the president's going.
But why doesn't he do it now? If he does go that way in declassifying this information, why not do it today, or why wait to the final hour?
Well, this actually is going to be one of the most important aspects of his legacy and how he goes down in history. Whether he'll go down in history as a president who expounded conspiracy theories and fake information to the American public, or somebody who does have the evidence and the robust evidence, I should say, to substantiate those claims that he's made numerous times over the last 2 years. I think that actually would behoove him and his administration much more so than escalating the temperature around the country with other heated rhetoric or invoking the Insurrection Act.
You yourself have been a recipient of a pardon from the president. Talking about that, according to one report, former Attorney General Bill Barr, who has stepped down, and White House counsel Pat Cipollone told President Trump not to pardon himself. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the president went through 2 or 3 years of intense investigation, including the Comey FBI and then a special counsel looking into every aspect of his entire life. If the Comey FBI or the Mueller investigation was unable to uncover any element of criminality or wrongdoing in President Trump's personal life and his public life and his own family's life, I don't understand why the president would need to pardon himself for fear of any potential incrimination after he leaves office. That's something that I don't know why Attorney General Barr would be advising that, but I think it would be the wrong move.
All right, talk to me about this with your background in foreign policy. Secretary of State Pompeo accusing Iran of al-Qaeda links. What are your thoughts on that, and do you agree with the Secretary of State?
Well, over the last week, Iran has ramped up its uranium enrichment to 20%, which is the threshold to actually detonate and create a nuclear weapon. It's also seized South Korean tankers in the Gulf and has increased its support to various insurgent and terrorist groups throughout the Middle East. This new recent information by the Secretary of State linking this long-rumored affiliation and relationship between Iran and al-Qaeda is not surprising. It only should increase the scrutiny on Iran during the waning days of the Trump administration, going into the Biden administration, which has a completely different approach to the state sponsor of terror. Joe Biden has publicly stated that he would like to go back into the Iran nuclear agreement, which is a tremendous mistake, and just allow Iran to create havoc throughout the Middle East, as it has done since the '79 revolution. So it's the right move by the Secretary of State to highlight what Iran has been doing, and just the world as a whole should coalesce together, confront Iran, and never allow it to reach this 20% threshold that it is trying to reach to create a nuclear bomb, because a nuclear-armed Iran is not in the national interest, and it's not in the interest of international peace and security.
Some would say North Korean leader Kim Jong-un already testing the incoming Biden administration, doing this, threatening to build up the country's nuclear weapons, clearly meant to pressure Biden to resume diplomacy, make concessions. Your thoughts on that, the future of relations with North Korea with a Biden administration?
Joe Biden is likely going to take the same approach as President Obama, where he's going to try and isolate the North Korean regime instead of trying to have a détente or reach out to the North Korean regime. We saw a spectacular improvement and stability along the Korean Peninsula with President Trump's outreach and olive branch diplomacy to North Korea, including a first ever meeting at the DMZ between a U.S. president and a North Korean leader. Tensions have de-escalated between South and North Korea, and we also saw an improvement of relations between the two stalwart U.S. allies in that part of the world, South Korea and Japan, to confront any burgeoning attempt of the North to declare that they are this nuclear power and detonate future nuclear weapons. So I think that was the right approach. I think a hostile approach and an attempt to isolate the North after such an incredible diplomatic overture by the Trump administration will only set back U.S. foreign policy decades.
All right, George Papadopoulos, I appreciate it as always talking to us this morning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
You got it.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.